You're probably wondering who I am. Well, my name's Tom, and I'm a videographer based in the Philadelphia area. I'm on a mission to find driven people with driven cars. My goal with this show is to share the journey behind success. Too much of today's content and media shows the glamorous moments. Well, I'm here to document the hard work. Today brings me to the suburbs of Feasterville. My guest has a garage and a home that he built with his bare hands. And this garage houses a very unique car, a Porsche with the heart of a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. A car that is loved and hated, a professional driver with a passion, and a business making works of art featured by big names like Mishimoto and Turn 14. We will delve into the history of his hard work. This is Eric Plebani of Plebani Built. Today, I'm with Eric Plebani of Plebani Built, and Eric is going to talk about a little bit of his super rich racing culture, his history, making art, making just crazy stuff. So I'm really excited about it. I'm interested in learning about it. And so, Eric.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to other enthusiasts and people that want to know crazy stories, because I have a lot of them.
Cool. Super awesome. Just to get started here with our show, I have a few questions that I want to ask you. And if you want to derail this at all, if you want to talk about random shit, it's kind of podcast format. So we're just kind of going with it. First and foremost, as a child, the earliest memories you can remember, what made you go, wow, like that's cool. I want to be in a car. I want to race. I want to drive cars. I love cars. Like what was that trigger moment for you?
Well, I think even before that, it was, besides...
While you're in the womb?
Might have been. There might have been a creative, injunction in the womb. But even as a kid, I always liked to build things. I'd be in the corner building things, Legos, like whatever. I was notorious for taking things apart, especially like brand new toys. I wanted to see how that works.
So you would have like a toy that wasn't meant to come apart. You would take a screwdriver, you would pull it all apart into pieces.
It took me a while to get to the screwdriver aspect, but I would take them apart somehow.
Okay.
I wanted to see how they worked on the inside.
Yeah.
And that progressed into, I guess it was a curiosity. How does this work? How can I make it better? What makes it tick? Let's build my own things. Like there was a good bunch of years of me destroying everything I touched. And just recently I was able to put stuff back together. So it started there, I think, and just maybe boredom, ADD, who knows. I like to just sit and build or draw art, whatever. The car thing was probably, the posters, going to like carnivals or Great Adventure, whatever, and you'd win like the Lamborghini poster, the Porsche 930 poster. You'd have these exotic cars, like, wow, what are those? I'd really like to take those apart. Toys came after that, and it was like, okay. But the car bug, that was always like, wow, that thing's neat. It's like rolling work of art. Mm-hmm. Like, how did they make that?
Did you ever go to like the book fairs and they'd have the supercar, like the Dodge Viper posters and stuff?
Oh, yeah, I got all that.
he has all of that.
There's probably some hanging up around here, but...
Cool garage, by the way.
Thank you. This is the workspace. A lot goes on in here. It's not very big, but there's a big output that comes out of here in all different types of fashions of automotive to art and metal and welding and carbon. You name it. It can happen in here. I don't really say no to a project, but that's just, it's still that curiosity as a kid. Like, can I build that? Can I do it? Can I challenge myself? Can I make something faster? Can I be different than everybody else who tried to do whatever it is they were trying to do?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the workspace really.
Did you have anyone in your family that was into cars, or was this like, so it was a new thing for you? You were kind of on your own thing.
Oh yeah.
So like when I was young, my dad was always into cars. And he still is into cars, actually. Yeah. He had nothing crazy, but he would always take me for rides and whatever that he had at the time. And it was, honestly, it was kind of like something where I was like, I'd look up to my dad and I'd be like, I want to do that someday.
Yeah,
and,
I know that.
Yeah.
It was just, taking things apart and like trying to figure out how things worked. And the more complex, the more interest. But it was, I don't know, there was a flash about like the 80s cars posters. Mm-hmm. What is that? Like it was appealing and inspirational in a way. Like, and then having, to go fast at some point, that was even more eye-opening. Mm-hmm. But my family upbringing had nothing to do with cars, really art, none of it. It was, this is what I did to occupy my own time, I suppose. But like my path is drastically different than anybody else I'm related to.
Huh. Yeah, my mom was an artist. My dad, he was kind of mechanical.
Yeah.
He had, I don't remember what model it was. It was some older Mercedes model. And I remember he saved all his money up for it. He brought it home
And the day that he brought it home, he took me and my mom and my younger brother for a ride.
Right.
And my younger brother was like 2. He was in a car seat in the back, and it would only fit 4 people. He puked this pink stuff all over the back of the car the very day my dad brought it home. So
I think the unicorn really is, especially with car guys, it's like it's art and mechanics, right? Mm-hmm. How do you combine those two? Because apparently your brains aren't supposed to work that way. You're not supposed to be the creative type or the and mechanical. It's either one or the other.
Yeah.
You either can understand how gears work and complex geometry and math, or have this creative, like it's good enough as long as it looks good. Mm-hmm. To combine the two, I think you'll find a lot of that in like the car culture. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of unicorns out there that can do both, and I think it's that's like a special power I think some of these car guys have, is they can have the mechanical brain be super precise, but also have an artistic flair where it looks good. Might not be functional, but it's sexy.
So with you, is it form over function or function over form, or is it a mix of both of them?
It's fluid. It can go either way.
It can go either way.
In the situation.
On what you want to do. So that brings me to my next question. So you've probably had several cars over the course of your life. Can you tell me, without getting too much in the weeds, tell me about some of your cars?
Basically, the Porsche 911 with the 4G swap, I built it in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. Right, so that car has been like the car I've always tinkered with. Mm-hmm. Now I've had, I started with DSMs, like an Eagle Talon, and that's basically the
same engine.
The engine went from the Talon to a Mitsubishi Starion rear-wheel drive with a Power Glide that ran 940s in 2001, way back when. And then I got bored of having fun just going to the track, so I wanted to build a fast street car. Mm-hmm. That's why I built the Porsche, but it's like the ultimate automotive troll car. And that's kind of why I built it. But like before that, I had a bunch of Talons. I had a bunch of just rusted, broke Starions that were on their last legs. And it was a challenge for me to see if I can breathe some new life into them. I'm sure the cars like hated it. They wanted to go out to pasture, but it was a learning experience for me. I did a motor swap in a Mighty Max pickup truck, which is a Mitsubishi small little Japanese truck. That thing was insanely fast and the most dangerous thing I probably ever owned. But like from race car to race car, the truck, like now I got I have an EV, I have a Tesla, it's fun, it's a great daily driver, but I have a diesel Cayenne, that's fun. A lot of Toyotas, a lot of Lexuses, and but fun cars, I've always focused mostly on just the Porsche because I've had race car, fun car. You can't really split your time up by yourself to do professional racing on your own and then have a fun street car and then have normal daily drivers. It's too much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah. No, I have no clue. I've never raced on a racetrack, so it's definitely something I want to try someday. But
it's a commitment.
Yeah, I mean,
back in the heyday of import racing, there was no off-the-shelf parts. Everything was made in your backyard, garage, or you found a really good old guy who was into drag racing that could help you out.
They had like machine parts for you and stuff.
Just all one-off stuff. Like it didn't exist. Like I lived in that era. It was, oh, you want to go fast? Well, all right, figure it out, because you're gonna have to take parts that aren't made for this and make them work. And a lot of those guys, they're still in the industry doing the same thing and like new genres, new cars. And I'm glad it happened because it's something you wanted to do and you really had to figure it out, or you're going to break, or you're not going to go down the track, and then you're not going to get that, adrenaline rush, and you'll stay up all night to make things work. I mean, the heyday was you'd break transmissions almost every pass and to figure out how to remedy that with no parts available.
So you've taken the transmission out of this probably, what, 1 million times, you think?
No, this thing's been pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, the Starions I started with, the DSMs always had weak transmissions, especially being all-wheel drive. So that was always an issue. You'd get certain amount of passes, transfer cases. It took a long time for components to be kind of brought up to the strength they needed to be. The Starion, I started with 5-speed truck transmissions, and I would swap bell housings from a 2.6, which the Starion came with, to the 2-liter truck.
Okay.
And I'd take the internals out and I'd put them in and machine different types of bearings that were bigger, but I'd get 8 to 9 passes out of a transmission. Knowing that, I'd have spares on hand. So
you'd have to.
The local pick your part junkyard was my best friend, and I'd go pull transmission on my lunch break at the time.
Is there still a local pick your part around here?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah, I've heard of, there's I think there's like one in Lancaster that I've heard of, or near Lancaster that my friend was telling me about, but I have never been to one. It's always something I've wanted to go check out just to see.
Big one in Scranton. It's like Harry's You Pull It. I still think they're like pretty legit, pretty big. That's like an amusement park for gearheads.
So let's say you're shopping for something, you find it, you bring your tools, you pull the part, you bring it to the guys. How do they price something like that?
I think they have a basic structure, like transmission, $50.
Okay, cool.
And then once they started figuring out like intercoolers, they started jacking the price up. I got really $200. Like the starting front mounts were like the thing to get back in the day, or diesel truck intercoolers. Because we were all trying to go fast and not spend any money. We were kids, so they had a pricing structure, and you had unlimited time, and there wasn't any safety protocols. You grab as many tires as you could, jack the car up, and throw the tires under it, and hope it doesn't fall on you.
Jeez.
Rear ends, drive shafts, transmissions, engines. It was a challenge to see if you can get it done on your lunch break at the time and drag this thing to your car covered in grease, dirt, and whatever else.
So your car was filthy at the time?
Yeah, I had a work truck.
Oh, there you go. You had a truck. So it didn't get into the inside of the car, really. Okay, well, that's good.
I wasn't that brave.
Oh, we weren't that brave. Okay, got it. Cool. So
those are the building blocks of professional racing for me, is like figuring stuff out to make work to keep you racing at the time.
Yeah.
And that was a springboard into doing it professionally.
Yeah. Oh, now all the kids have it super easy because you can buy any turbo you want off the shelf. You can buy parts.
Steal people's tunes. Like, there was none of that back then. We all had to lay the groundwork.
Wow.
I sound like I'm walking to school and at 9 feet of snow with only a notebook, but that's what we did to make it work. It was a different time, but we all had the same goal, and it was just to keep going fast, regardless of how we did it. And the guys are still in the game, or they got that basic mindset. They've applied it to the newer technology and the stuff that's off the shelf.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to see.
What else? What other hobbies are you into aside from cars?
Cars is the mainstay, but it's a creative outlet really to kind of show off my skills. As far as hobbies, I just like building stuff. So if I have a commission to build, whether it's welding helmets or carbon pieces or furniture or trade show displays or,
Do you still play with Legos?
I've given up the Legos because I don't open the boxes because they're so valuable now. But
so you're saving them for the next person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've gotten it out with the Legos. Now I do like bigger metal.
I get it.
Legos.
I get it. I'm just busting your balls, mate.
Yeah. Still love Legos. That got me going.
Yeah.
Remember erector sets?
I did.
Those were metal.
So erector sets were a little bit before my time. Okay. But I remember at my grandma's house, they had an erector set, and I felt like I needed a tetanus shot before playing with it, but it was like...
They also had gears, screws. It taught you a valuable skill Legos.
Yeah, Legos...
on Lego, so if Lego wants to sponsor me, I'm all for it. But
Lego?
Anybody? Erector set, are still around, we can do something. But that was a different experience because it had like mechanical workings. It had gears. It had things you'd put together that would do an operation.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh, okay, this is like the next level of the game. It's like everything to me is a Tetris type of thing. A lot of the cars I built, so the boss would want a crazy amount of stuff in a package that couldn't fit. Always, like
every time.
Crazy. And you really have to figure out and get creative. And there was no CAD. It was like, we need it tomorrow.
And you're like making models out of wood and stuff?
No, we just went and did it.
Just did it. You just did it.
We just figured it out.
Just figured it out.
Cut metal, put stuff here. Oh, that's not going to work. I mean, I've thrown away a lot of crazy manifolds and turbo setups that just eventually didn't work and would start over. Had 3 days to get to Button Willow to run the track, or we draw it on the ground while the car was on jack stands and draw it, tape it, apply it. That was our cheap CAD modeling software, but same thing.
It's CAD before CAD.
Yeah, we had the building blocks in our heads to like, we're going racing, we're going to make rounds, this is what we're going to do, and we figured out how to do it.
So you started your career, I did a little digging. You started your career, you went to school for computer graphics, which I did too. So like, we're a little bit similar in that sense. And then you left that.
Figured out it wasn't going to pan out.
No, I mean, today it would pan out.
I still apply it with CAD modeling and what I do now, and it's been a help, but back then it was not like it is today.
Yeah, so today everybody needs that stuff nonstop.
I was always an art student, typical art student. I didn't really kind of fit in with normal academics, or like it was boring to me.
Where'd you go to art school?
Bucks here.
Bucks.
It was, but I did a lot of like summer classes as a kid. So there was like more College of Art and all kinds of other stuff that they opened up to students over the summer. So I would take the train down to Philly as a kid and just do like art stuff. I mean, I was bored. The only thing that interested me was like making stuff, even as a kid.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Because like, did they make you take gen eds?
No.
So I had to take gen eds too.
No, I had to take some.
It was awful, man. I failed almost all of them because like I had to take a philosophy class. I couldn't even understand what the professor was saying because English was not their first language. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was like,
well, I think creative people don't speak that academic language.
Not at all.
That's why we get into like creative stuff and art stuff. You need that outlet. But I had a choice. I was going to go to like computer repair school or some bullshit. And I'm like, I'll just do the art thing. It seemed like a better idea. At the time, like I was kind of playing with cars. I was interested in it. I was also doing like MMA when it first started.
it's expensive now.
Everything's expensive now.
Yeah.
So even when I was in 4-hour studio classes, and I had to take all my general fine art stuff, and then the computer animation and art was like the pinnacle of that. But you still had to draw nasty naked people, and
You had to do that too?
I had to do that too.
I got some killer stories about that.
Well, that's a whole like psychologically challenging thing for the people that did that.
So life drawing, that's what it was called.
Life drawing, yeah.
So-
I don't know if they called it that, but it was terrible.
So I had to take life drawing, and the professor was definitely a weirdo. I would say borderline a pervert, which I guess if you teach life drawing, you'd have to be almost. But
Requisite for sure.
yeah, so we went in and we had pretty much the same models every time. There was like,
From drama class.
I have no clue who I don't know where they found people that were willing to get butt naked in front of a bunch of kids, but
It was weird.
but there was a lady with this big old C-section scar, which that was interesting.
Did you have to draw that?
You know what? He was super weird about it. He wanted us to draw more like wireframes of their bodies. Like I wanted to get into the details of like the boobs and all this stuff, and he was like, "No, you're spending way too much time on the wrong stuff here. We're talking proportions. We're talking
Right.
you know, whatever."
Sounds like something a pervert would say.
Yeah. So like if we were doing realism drawings, I probably would have threw myself into it because I don't know, I don't want to sound like a weirdo myself, but like I'm actually making something. But with these wireframe drawings, I felt like really challenged, and I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Why don't you just have them leave their clothes on?
The whole thing was stupid.
But we had this guy that came in, and he was like straight out of California, surfer dude. He had shorts. It was like a 3-inch inseam in his shorts. And most of the people, they would get naked in another room, and they would come out in a robe, and then they would take the robe off whenever the professor was ready for them to. He showed up, t-shirt, and like I said, the 3-inch inseam, pink shorts, and beach blonde hair. You know, it's like he sat out in the sun all day, flip-flops. He walked right up to the center, kicked his flip-flops into different portions of the room, pulled his pants down. He wasn't wearing underwear. I remember that vividly. And took his shirt off, and he was ready to go. And I just was like standing there, like looking at everyone else, like, what the is going on?
What was the intervals he changed positions?
I was a little scarred from that environment, so I don't remember all the position changes.
That's kind
but
of what I remember is the
they held their positions for like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I don't know.
time. And yeah, it was just odd.
And they'd get cold.
It was weird for a room full of kids to be drawing naked people.
Yeah.
I'm glad
We
I had
paid
the
for that.
experience. Yeah, I paid for that, but it was not something I would have like willingly done if I didn't have to take like an actual course to get through school. But you know, I had a year of color theory. That lady didn't like me. My photography teacher didn't like me, and I was a little bit of a handful. I mean,
I was too.
a testosterone-ridden guy who wanted to go fast in the car, and I was like I said, doing MMA at the time where it was like UFC 1 just came out. So I'd come into class, black eyes from training, and I didn't really want to. It's like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I didn't want to be in a lot of the classes. They didn't really pique a lot of my interest until I got into like some of the like woodworking and some of like maybe metal shop stuff. Like I'm like, okay, this is actually cool. I can get behind this. But
I took woodworking in high school.
Some pompous teacher telling you about how colors are affected by like different things and just blabbering on about all the things like she makes and I didn't really mesh well, but I did get a lot of creative kind of inspiration about that. The whole thing, which is like, I'm not a 4-hour studio, sit there and just take it all in type of guy. Like I want to be doing a lot of the work and just kind of like, leave me alone, let me build whatever the project is and then grade me on it. And those are the classes I did best in.
Same.
So oddly enough, I had to take a TV production course, and I did, music videos basically with like hardcore type, like Rage and some other stuff with like.
Did you find people to play instruments, or what was
I would just take like old
clips of
war footage from like documentaries and put into music.
That's cool.
And we had to do like, a sit down, actual like news anchor stuff. I did the studio truck thing. And I remember a guy grabbed me, he's like, hey, you should really consider a career in video production. I'm like, why? He's like, you're actually pretty good. You're good at all this different technical stuff. And then on camera, like, I think you can like get it. I'm like, nah, dude, like, I ain't doing this shit. I was like so focused on just playing with cars and like,
Well, it paid off in the end.
It's funny.
Right?
It came back around because I got to do a lot of video production with a lot of bigger companies. And it's, I always thought it's funny. Like, am I really doing this? Oh, okay. We're going to follow us around racing and they're going to film us. Like, all right, I remember this from like the school days, but I always thought it was funny because I was like not mad that he was like suggesting I take this career path, but little insulted. And I just, it's funny to me now that I do a lot of it and it comes back and I'm like, oh, maybe that guy, maybe he did see something. I shouldn't have been such a dick to him.
Well, you know what?
But anyway,
you don't know everything whenever you're in school.
Oh, I didn't know shit. I was dumb as hell. It was a way to get creativity out, and it was an art themed kind of degree I was going for. It was computer animation design with video game movies. Were just starting to come out with a lot of this new technology, and it was cool. I was good at it, and the teachers who taught the class worked in the field, and they're like, we're going to give you an internship.
Really?
Oh, this is great. Okay, cool. So I'll just play on a computer and build graphics or whatever. It's sounds cool. And first day, they just sit in this cubicle and answer phones. And I remember staring at the phone, looking at like the sticky notes with people's notes and numbers. I'm like, this ain't me. You can't do it. And I said, sorry, I can't. I got to go. And
First day.
Got to go play.
Just out of here.
I knew right then, like,
That's funny.
This might be dumb. I invested time into this, and this was going to be a career path. But I'm sorry, I'm leaving. This isn't me. So I got the hell out of there.
That's funny. I mean, hey, you sometimes you got to make that executive decision.
I think I saw the future, and that future wasn't me. I wanted to build stuff. I wanted to get back to street racing, car stuff, and training, and just other things that weren't that.
So you went to college, and then you left college. Where did you go?
I was just working.
What were you doing?
Construction.
That's hard.
Custom mirror work, construction.
So like in houses and stuff?
New development stuff. So I was working with my hands, but the construction was a means to be able to play with my cars.
Yeah.
So I had a spot in the construction business where I got to play with my cars. So I had a little dedicated area. Get my car ready to do some street racing.
Were you still living at home at that point, or what was your setup?
Yeah, I was still at home. I'm trying to get the years right, but
you didn't think we were going to go back in time like this, did you?
well, I've told the stories a couple times, but I'm trying to get my dates right. I could pinpoint when I built the house I'm in now with the garage here.
So you built this?
Yes.
Cool.
And I was.
We're going to do a home tour after this. No kidding.
So to date it, when I built the house and we started construction, poured the foundation, I think it was in November or October.
Cold.
Yeah, but I was leaving for SEMA to go get sponsorships for my Starian race car.
Yeah.
So that kind of dates what the time frame was. And some, kid in his 20s trying to go talk to big sponsors at a trade show on how to attain money to keep this
Racing.
going.
It's scary.
I had no clue. I didn't know what the fuck.
Did you have any success?
Small success, yeah. But I just kind of went and just, I was sponsored with Busher Racing at the time.
Okay.
And he was out of Ohio. He was a parts maker who specialized in DSM stuff, and he was a little ahead of the curve. He kind of got one, figured out some stuff, just like, backyard mechanic things. And he had the ball rolling, so he was like a sponsor on the car. And then, back then you wanted a turbo sponsor intercooler sponsor, injector sponsor, like anybody who was able to either give you parts or a small budget so you could travel. And, you know, I got a couple small ones, and funny enough, like ACT clutches, I think I might have been their first sponsored driver back in 2000, 2001, and then I switched to an automatic. So I've known Dirk from ACT for a very long time. He was cool, and he was, you know, he would build me clutches, and you know, that was like one of the first ones, and I got some magazine articles with their logo on a car, and it was like before anybody knew what like an ACT clutch was.
Yeah. So you would take their logo and you put it on your car. You'd have almost like a livery of different logos on your car.
I would bring, magazines were big at the time. The social media was magazines. You'd have to wait 3 months to see if you got in it. So it was.
So they would do the interview, but you weren't guaranteed a slot in the magazine.
No. And if you were at a race and you want clips, you know, and small pieces of coverage of that event. So the event coverage was like a 3-month delay. And if you had a full feature, that could have been 3 to 6 months. You had to fill out paperwork, and you know, they would mostly advertise for their sponsors in your article, but it was a delay. So the instant gratification of like a social media was like going to Barnes & Noble and trying to find that issue of whatever magazine you might have been in. But it definitely built a lot of character, and you made a lot of friendships because it was all face-to-face. You had to meet people from the magazine, you had to meet photographers, you had to go to the events, you had to show a presence. So you tried to really get some sponsors to help you travel, because the more exposure, the better off you were.
The more sponsors you could get.
Yeah, you bring magazines to like potentials and say, all right, this is what I'm in, this is the coverage I can provide you, this is my talking points. But there wasn't, you know, ESPN was trying to cover these races. It was all new to me, because it was, you know, this isn't what I delved in at all. I just wanted to go fast, but I figured this is a means to keep it going.
You had to do it.
You had to do it. You had to go talk to people.
Sometimes
you had to introduce yourself. You had to go up and say, hi, my name's Eric Blank. I have this. I do this. I race in this series. I run your parts already. Is there any way you could help me out? Like, you had to start relationships in person, face to face.
It's not like you send someone a DM and ask them to if you can show up at their house and film a video.
Nothing.
That's what I did.
Yeah. But we're in the new age.
Yeah.
It's a lot different.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And I think it's a lot less rewarding too, because there's so many people doing this. Like, okay, I'm making a video with Eric. How many people made videos with you before me?
Can't count.
I mean, mine's gonna be the best, but yeah, it's like, back then it's like, okay, I'm in a magazine, that's totally different.
You had to be at events and you had to talk to people. And a lot of people don't want to talk to people now. It's all electronic, and you lose that luster, I think. I don't have the best skill for being face-to-face and being, you know, super personable, especially for your work on the race car. But I'm like, this is what you have to do. You have to take time. You have to talk to people. People would bring magazines up. I'm like, hey, can you sign this? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Sure. Do you want to sit in my car? Sure. Yeah, hop in. Like, there wasn't much to it. It was race, but like those interactions you had with people, like Englishtown, you know, is dead now. So is Atco, but like those places used to be packed. Both sides. It was like you had to leave 4 a.m. to get there to get your spot to like, and the crowds would come in. I mean,
you have to bring tools. You have to bring all kinds of stuff to make sure that you can keep your cars running.
But you had interactions. Like, people could walk around the pits and they'd be like, "Wow, this is cool. Hey, how did you do this? I have one of these." Or, you know, you had to have really positive interactions to get like sponsorships to like keep your
passion going,
your passion, your hobby, and this addiction to speed that you really wanted to keep going.
So you went from construction not straight into racing full time. You were doing something else after that, right?
Well, it was basically construction and mechanics same time. I've always done like 2 or 3 things.
So you were a mechanic too? So you were working on other cars, or?
Kind of. Yeah. No. So it was mostly construction, working on my cars, and then I started doing mechanics too. So construction, mechanical work, then it was self-taught. You know, some of the stuff we built was complex. So doing a street car and working on those, it was a lot easier. So I started doing some mechanics, but like no training. And I just spread myself thin to keep the dream of racing going. And after I kind of finished my racing career out of my own pocket, like with my Starian, that I think I raced for like 4 years professionally, I guess you could say. I got hired by World Racing from being able to kind of show what I did with nothing. That got, eyes on me from the racetrack, and a reputation of like being able to figure stuff out or thinking outside the box or making things work that weren't really available. Like, okay, you can take a coconut and a transistor and make a radio. You should be like those kind of like MacGyver analogies. And I got hired from at World Racing to be one of their, mechanics, fab guy, specialty vehicle builder, work in the shop, build custom cars, and provide support to the professional race team and build the race cars.
So
Going to art school.
Yeah, so you went to art school, you went to construction, then you went straight into racing. And I'm downplaying it a lot. I'm sure there was a lot of hard work that was involved in that.
For sure, but there was definitely like 2 or 3 jobs to keep racing going. And then, build a house, provide, family stuff, and have kids all at the same time, and keep racing going, or keep like working in that industry as you're like a young 20-something trying to figure out the world, but still wanting to go fast and still wanting to build stuff. Like
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's chaos, and it's just a whirlwind of sparks and spinning wrenches and just trying to make ends meet any way you could to keep on the racetrack.
What's the fastest speed you've ever traveled at in a car?
Legally?
Let's say in Mexico.
Or
legally.
There's an Atlantic City Expressway in Mexico.
Okay.
And I've had a similar 911 to mine over 180.
Wow.
Racing something. Yeah,
perfect.
It was wild. I think Chalmers, maybe.
Okay, Flanders. That makes more sense.
There was a witness to this. So Chuck from Bonehead.
Oh, Chuck from Bonehead.
Yeah,
Shout out Chuck.
Me. So we were going to hot import nights in Atlantic City.
You were running late.
I had to get there. No, I was provoked.
Oh,
I think statute of limitations is gone now, so this was a long time ago.
There you go.
It was a baby blue Lamborghini, and he kind of pulled up. We had a pack of cars, like tuner cars back at the time going. Chuck was in a DS.
Was that your 911? This one?
It was flat black at the time. No, it was this color. Yeah, it was this one. Yeah, statute of limitations done, so we can talk about it. So basically, the guy pulled up to the pack, and I think I was first. And
and
the old story, like you look at each other and both we're
yeah. And the Mitsubishi motor was in it at the time.
Oh yeah.
Shit, that's cool. Very cool.
That's been in it since the late 90s.
So when you got the 911, what was the state of it then? Was it in good shape? Was the motor blown? Like what was the okay?
This was the second one I bought. So I bought, like, once I kind of got out of racing professionally for myself. It's very expensive. It's like, I blew a motor. I need a turbo, or I could put a deck on my house. I was like, all right. I want to go back to having a fun street car. And at that same interval, I got hired to do professional racing anyway. Not to be a driver. I was always the backup driver, but like my experience on the racetrack got me to that position. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go back and I'll build something fun for the street. The whole purpose of me buying this car, it was a baby blue 911 SC. It was a European car.
What year was it?
In 1980.
1980. That's this car. This was baby blue.
It was baby blue. I bought it in Allentown.
Okay.
It had popped head studs. It smoked real bad. It ran. It had a 5-speed in it. It was a European spec car. So the story was it came over. It was a guy from the Air Force who originally bought it in Germany, drove it at whatever Air Force base was over there. He imported it into the States. I believe in Florida is the paperwork I have. And then this chef in Allentown bought it from him. So it's a legit European 911 SC. I got it. There was an ad.
Yeah.
Back in an Auto Trader. That's what we used back then. And it was baby blue.
I remember Auto Trader, the books.
They were great. I like to reminisce about the prices of things. If you look at some of the old Auto Traders.
He probably still has old Auto Traders.
They're probably down in my basement.
I called it.
I saw an ad, and it was a baby blue 911, needed a lot of work. The guy, he was a chef, and he drove it up to go skiing all the time. Fortunately, this was a galvanized frame, so it didn't have a lot of rust issues.
That's good.
But the motor was just smoky. It ran, but all the head studs were popped. So on an air-cooled engine, they have like 4 studs to hold the cylinders on. It's like a motorcycle type of air-cooled motorcycle thing. It would pop and sputter. Once it warmed up, it ran. So it was a running car. We got it for $5,500.
Wow. 1980 Porsche 911 for $5,500.
Back in the 90s.
Yeah. Wow.
Sold the motor for more than I paid for the car. Because I knew I was cutting this thing up.
Well, it's an air-cooled motor. I'm sure it was a desirable motor to have.
It was a European spec motor, so it was desirable.
Yeah.
And any parts I didn't need or wasn't going to use bought it for doing the motor swap. Whole intention of it. Everything I took off this car, I sold. eBay was great at the time. It was a good time to like sell parts. The motor sold for more than I paid for the car.
Wow.
All the oil coolers, all the stuff I didn't need, the sump stuff, anything I wasn't using went on eBay, and the car paid for itself within a couple months.
That's awesome.
Knowing I was going to just cut it up and do sacrilegious things to it. But it was a way to like show fabrication talents, creative talents. What is this possible to do? You know, I had the motor sit and I was done with racing the Starry. I'm like, that came from my talent into the Starry, and now it's going in a 911 in the back. So did some measuring. I'm like, I'll make this work. And
yeah, you got it fitting. And now I don't know much about these air-cooled cars, but the wing on the back, the whale tail, did it always have cooling in there? Okay, so you kind of kept that same principle.
Yeah, the Germans did a great job with aerodynamics on this car. So the 930S with the brake ducts and the box rockers, and you know what they said was these cars could do 200 miles an hour. You could put on a ceiling and it would stay there.
Wow.
And I've had it close to 200 and it's definitely stable. So we've done some like aero tests when I worked with some of these crazy, really good racing engineers. I worked with Audi and some other high profile LMP teams, and you know, I poked their brain. We did a lot of aero on some of the world racing cars. So this car does a lot of cool aero stuff, and it's been verified, and you can see it with the temp sensors I have in the vehicle. So that wing, it pulls air right through the intercooler. Now, when it was factory, it had a small intercooler and like an AC component off to the one side, so it was kind of split. But usually when you start modifying these,
you ditch the AC.
You take that out and you do a big intercooler, because all the air coming over the car just goes right through it. The brake ducting, it all goes through. I have coolers.
Yeah, so like these right here, this section, that's a duct for the rear brakes. Is there anything on the front ducting for the front brakes?
There is. It's through where the now water-cooled radiator is for the 4G63 Mitsubishi. So the one challenge with the car was to put a cooling system in it, because it didn't have any provisions for a cooling system. I mean, so heater core, no tubing. So there's stainless steel tubing that runs from the back to the front to fit a heat exchanger for cooling your engine. So that was probably the biggest challenge, but we got it right on the first try, and it's not a big deal. But back when I built this you didn't do this to a finely engineered German precision machine. You didn't do this stuff.
Would you say that you improved it?
I can say I improved
Certain
to
things.
what I want. You had a very limited. If you wanted to go fast with an air-cooled engine, Porsche 911, whatever, back in the 90s, you're spending a ton of money. Like more than I had to spend on the project.
Kind of like if you want to build like a WRX or something.
Worse.
Yeah, worse.
This was all like a mechanical injected, distributor. You had to beef up a lot of components in the air-cooled engine, and then you needed electronics, and you needed updated turbocharging, and you needed a lot of things that weren't cheap. I did some research. I had all the magazines back. I was like, wow, these guys spent a ton of money to make these things go fast. I think they came at like 260 horsepower, right? And they were
How much does this have now?
800 all the way up.
Wow. Are you going to take me for a ride in this then?
Sure. But to go fast with a bone stock DSM, that if I can make it work and get the drivetrain figured out, a bone stock DSM with like a big turbocharger, it'll already make more than the factory made. So the capabilities. I made like 750 plus in my Starion, right? It was easy to do. I had a big Turbonetics T66 on it, had a VPC and big injectors, and that's how we got to go fast back then. And that kind of same technology went right into the car, at that point, and that was a fraction of the price it would take to make an air-cooled 11 go that fast.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wanted to piss people off. You didn't do this back in the 90s. It was like making a little bit of a name for yourself. See if you could do it, see if you could figure it out, see if you can make it like kind of look like a Porsche. It has all factory stuff. It's like the ultimate troll car. And then back then I would go to some like big Porsche shows like in Hershey and then like pop the hatch and walk away. And guys were furious.
So I think we went over a lot of really good topics today. I appreciate that. I want to learn just a little bit in closing about what Plebani Build is. That's your business. That's kind of where you're at today and what you're doing today.
Sure. So like along the path, I've always built stuff. I always built stuff for clients, but I made one custom welding helmet for myself, and that kind of blew up to the point where it was unmanageable not to start a business to do that. So
What was the theme?
Boba Fett,
Oh, okay. Is that one that's on the wall there?
one of them, but the original's down in the basement locked up.
You won't show that to me?
I can.
Show it to me.
I will. But that catapulted, all the other talents I've done and things I've built over the years, and it kind of put a big spotlight on me. And it was at that point I started Plebani Built, because that was the time to like capitalize on it, and I had no other choice. I was getting thousands of emails to like, hey, can you build me something? Hey, can you build me something? I didn't know how to really build it, so I had to teach myself that whole process too. And
What are what's the material of the mask?
it's composite, it's carbon fibers and high temp types of aerospace materials that will live in the environment, which is demanding in welding and fabrication. And it's not a place you really want to live every day. So you have to have
the protection.
You have to have the
So what
protection.
you mean to tell me is in 1,000 years, whenever like aliens are controlling our Earth,
We'll be using
they're
them.
they're digging up artifacts, and they'll find a Plebani Built mask, and they'll be like, oh, I wonder what this relic is.
That are some of my trade show displays that are ginormous. And I have one in my backyard. I'll show you that too. Cool. But basically, all the things over the years have funneled into the business, and the business is more than just the welding helmets now. I do them. I do one at a time. They're all handmade. It depends on what you want, and it's a big process. I don't want to give you anything that's not something I would wear. It's got to be perfect, and it's a functional piece of art. But with that, the business has expanded to like big trade show displays for big automotive companies, automotive furniture, people who want one of one, people who want something that doesn't exist. It's the only one in the world. That's where I can come in and provide that service. So it's expanded into things that a guy might have an idea. Can you build this? I want this for my office or my house or my backyard. Yeah, we can.
Cool.
So it's kind of evolved into many other things, but I still do, the welding helmet, custom stuff for, high profile people. I have TV shows, they weld on shows, or just, regular people that want to spend the money on something. But 9 times out of 10, I build them something and they said, this is so nice, I'm not going to use it. It's just going to sit in a case. So it's a little disappointing, but that's, it's their product they wanted, their dream they envisioned. And that's with everything, whether it's car stuff, it's trade show displays, it's automotive furniture, anything like that. If you want something custom 101, doesn't exist in the world, you have an idea, I can make that happen for you. So that's kind of where it is today.
Yeah. So whenever you decided you were going to make your first custom welding helmet for yourself, I'm assuming, was there other things on the market?
No.
So it was just the standard welding helmet.
Yep.
That you could get. So you were kind of a pioneer in that sense, because I feel like occasionally I see Plebani Built knockoffs in the marketplace.
Sure. I was the first.
That's cool.
And it's still hard to do. That's why it's still not happening on a bigger scale, because it's very impossible to make custom different shapes and whatnot.
Well, they make like off the shelf skull masks and random shit.
Yeah,
But
that's not cool. Not cool.
Same exact.
So all throughout the career, I always would combine different things like the Porsche with Mitsubishi engine, or, different aspects of like automotive to make furniture. So I'd always have this like combination kind of tactic in my head to combine different things that maybe don't belong into something that belongs really well. And the welding helmet was definitely part of that. I took just something I liked as a kid. I like Star Wars stuff, and growing, and I like welding. I'm like, I'm gonna make me a cool mask. And I had no idea that it would have broken the internet and blown up the way it did. I'm glad it did. It was cool. But you know, there's more I want to do with combining other things, but that was a great stepping stone. I love doing it. It's hard to make a functional, weird shape that's not heavy and kills a welder's head. So there's a lot of engineering factors, but like it's a challenge, it's fun, and it's, you know, the service I can provide.
Cool. Very cool. I had a question. Oh, back on Legos. Do you remember the space Lego sets? They were like super rudimentary, like space exploration Legos.
Yes.
I don't have any kicking point off of that. But
Well, here's
talking about Star Wars.
Yeah. So my Lego things was you dump them all out of whatever box they were in and make something.
So you didn't actually follow the instructions.
No, I still don't.
I followed the instructions.
No.
So you're a step ahead of me on that one.
Dump them out, put something together, figure it out. Best way to learn is to, you know, fuck up a bunch of times and you like learn your lesson.
I get that.
Being self-taught with everything I've done, I think the harder it is to learn something and make something, the easier it is for you a year later. And you're probably considered an expert if you go that route. It's not always applicable, but there's some eggs you got to break to make the omelet. So sure. I think it's important, especially for people that like are choosing their own path. You know, you have to go through those hard times and really figure it out because nobody's going to do it for you. And it kind of excites me to like be in the trenches like that on a project.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on all those statements because, you know, whenever I decided I wanted to go and just make video, I had no formal training on that. When I was a kid, my parents had a camcorder. I would make the stupidest videos and they would record the VHS.
Right.
And then I
remember those.
I would take like stickers that you would print on a printer.
Yeah.
And I would make my own labels.
Oh shit.
For the movies that I made. And I don't know where these exist. Maybe they're still at my parents' house. I have no clue. But I made movies and I made branding for the movies and they could have been the dumbest things on the planet. But I didn't know at the time I was carving myself something that I was going to do later on in life. So I think and that's kind of the purpose of this show.
Right.
I want to showcase how people get to where they're at today. Because I think that there's way too much content online where people are showing the final product and everyone's comparing themselves to that. But there's not enough out there where you're seeing, okay, this is where I started and this is where I'm at now. And it's not instant gratitude. It's not instant success.
I think it's important to show like the stepping stones. Like you started here, you had to jump to this stone, you had to jump here and show like what you had to do to get to the next one. Because I mean, there's been times I've been out here just days on end making a project happen or trying to figure something out. And it could be months before I actually can figure out whatever I'm working on to make it work. But those impossible like feats in that time, that like builds your character to like get you to the next level. My path has been crazy. It's not for the weak. You really have to kind of dive in head first, jump off the cliff, figure out the parachute as you're falling down, to kind of like get that mentality of figuring it out and making it successful, because that's what you have to do. You have to make it successful because nobody's going to be like, oh dude, video is great. Here's $1 million. Have fun.
Never.
Not going to happen. So you got to go out there and you got to like, you know, be in the trenches. You got to chip away. And that whole process is what makes the better outcome, whether it's quick or it's a long haul. But, you know, most successful people they all have the same type of story and they're just driven to get this to the next level, regardless of the impossible tasks or the problems or anything that has come up in their way.
Awesome. Eric, thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You sitting for this. I appreciate you doing this.
No problem.
And I look forward to doing more. So if you know anybody who is kind of in a similar area, I'm hoping to make sort of a series out of this. And that's
You
to
should,
you and that's to everyone else that's watching this.
You should advertise in a magazine and wait 3 months for people to mail you.
That's a good idea.
On that note,
There you go.
thank you.
People.
All right, so this is my ultimate automotive troll car. It is a 1980 911 SC, but I've completely took a perfectly good German precision engineered vehicle and cut it up and bastardized it to my liking. So what I really tried to do was showcase fabrication skills, building something that really looks like a Porsche, and Porsche guys really like it until they actually get a closer look. So we motor swapped this with a 4G63 from an old Evo. It runs a 930 4-speed Porsche transmission, which apparently are unbreakable. I've been trying, haven't broke it yet. The car does wheelie on the street, makes about 800 horsepower all the way up. It's water cooled now, so I had to put a cooling system in it, which this car did not come with. But it's a European spec car. Sold the motor for what I paid for the car back in the late 90s when I built this. And you have to remember, back in the late 90s, you didn't do this to a Porsche 911. Really wanted to piss a lot of people off, kind of show off what I could do. And from the outside, it looks like a really nice air-cooled 930S, box rockers, vented brake ducts in the back, really cool front spoiler, brake ducts, fog lights, kind of real 80s poster you'd win at a carnival look to it, but I made it my own. And it's got updated electronics to run the engine, but it's all business inside. It's got a 75 shot of nitrous, water meth injection, and 40 pounds of boost when I feel like turning it up. So it's a rocket ship. It's light, 2,600 pounds with meat in it, but I really wanted to keep the classic Porsche look to it with its dirty little secret in the back.